Hey, this is Real Reactions, and we're going to review Extraction 2. I'm here with Andy, Justin, and myself, Jeremy, and let's start it off.
You were clinically dead 9 months ago. But you survived.
I definitely thought it was better than the first, but not anything special, right? Like, it's an action movie. The movie's carried by these really big action scenes that could have been really shortened if things actually went according to plan, right? Like, all in all, the action movie is a very bland, or not bland, but standard action movie, right? Like, we're gonna get this big fight scene, do some quick dialogue, get to the next big fight scene. One's gonna be in a prison, one's gonna be at a hotel, one's gonna be on a train. You know, scene until you get to the end, and somehow he's gonna get beat up and shot in every scene and survive every time. So yeah, I'm watching him like, yeah, it's a decent action movie, but for me, nothing to write home about, you know.
Yeah, it was a classic action movie. Could have been in like any time period. Could have been from the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. You know, basic formula. You know, no dialogue, no backstory, no character development, just pure action for 2 hours. They've done it in an hour and a half. They could have done it in an hour, but I watched it, wouldn't watch it again. Chris Hemsworth, I guess, gave it his all from what he was given, but not a movie I would, tell people you have to go see this movie.
Yeah. Overall, I think it was a great action movie. I mean, Chris Hemsworth, he's a movie star, right? So he definitely carried the film. I thought the fight scenes were really good.
Yeah.
I thought even the background actors were crazy good in this movie, like over the top, like invested in this film, like they were the star of it. So I think everyone gave it their all. I think you could tell in this movie they're trying to make it a franchise like John Wick, and it's not John Wick. It's not on the same level, but close. As its own thing. I thought it was a great action movie because I've also seen so many shitty action movies like that have come up in the last 10 years. And this one, it felt really over the top, which is what an action movie should be. So overall, I really like the film.
Yeah, I mean, I do enjoy when an action movie just dives into what they're supposed to, which is the fight scenes and then the shootouts. So I agree, like, at a pure action movie level, it definitely makes sense, right? They try to add some stakes in this one that are a little higher than Extraction 1.
I think there was like a couple of moments where they were trying to like add in the emotional connection, and those are the only moments it dragged on, right? Because there were some moments like, okay, we get it. Besides dragging on, I will say that the scene they're running through the factory literally made me dizzy. Like, there was just way too much going on. They're doing things with the camera, and they're like over the top with it. You know how like the Bourne Identity really revolutionized like action with the way like they like ran with the camera. This brought it to a new level of like, okay, it's making me sick.
The director of Extraction 2, obviously Extraction 1, he comes from the stunt background. He was a stunt coordinator for like, the Russos, those Marvel movies. Okay. So now these are his two main movies as a director. So like, I think he really goes into that stunt background with all those fight scenes, because there were times like during the scenes, that prison fight scene where camera went like all over the place, that first person shooter aspect where it got a little overwhelming because it was like, it just kept shaking. Like it was just like quick cuts, spinning, and you're like, what am I just watching?
Some of the scenes almost seem like they're taking a little too long in certain moments, right? Like Chris's character, Tyler Rake, is struggling with his injuries throughout the whole movie. And every fight scene, it seems like it's like longer than it would be for a regular healthy person to get through. And it's this guy who's banged up that's somehow getting through it. He's fighting in the prison for a super long time. Them running through the factory, like you said, and you're like, okay, surely it's over now. Nope, we're on a train and we're still fighting, guys. They're coming in a helicopter. The train is gonna get derailed at the end. I'm in a barrel just rolling down the hill, but it's a train that was going probably at least 60 miles per hour, if not faster.
Probably away faster. Some of them just dragged, and you're like, all right, at no point did anybody pause, take a breath, being like, what am I doing? I'm covered in bullets. Like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah, it's an ongoing physical impossibility what they're doing, and we're not saying like
even just showing him like bent over, just huffing and puffing.
Right, like
would have been like, all right, I get that. Like,
they never show him like even a bead of sweat. Like it was just like
it takes humanity out of the character. It makes you care for him less because he's so inhuman.
They make him a video game character. The only ones you feel bad for are his team because like Yaz and his sister Nick are in cars flipping. They're getting banged up.
Right.
Like their characters are
which
truly
they wouldn't have survived those crashes.
Which is
definitely not. Definitely
so
not.
violent.
And the car got blown up like sometimes.
Right.
In the first movie, none of them have like fighting experience, but then all of a sudden, the second movie, they're like these expert fighters.
Yeah,
right.
Yaz is supposed to be like the tech guy, and like in the movie, they open with him being like the wheelman. I'm like, all right, he's gonna help him drive, and then later on, he's shooting his assault rifle, like,
expert marksman,
throwing perfect grenade tosses, and I was like, I guess he was just he didn't want to be in
but
the
he's
field.
not a grunt.
His handler were behind the scenes. We get the job, and you do the job. Now they're heavily involved in getting beat up to the point of death and actually dying. Like Yaz is getting shot and dying because he's caught in the middle of this. Like the reason he died is on Tyler. Like normally the main character is saving everybody at all costs, and in this movie he's fighting Zarab. Zarab falls through the glass, and it's like, all right, he's the last guy. And instead of finishing him off, he walks to the helicopter. Zarab gets up and shoots Yaz in the back. And the whole time I'm seeing that, I'm like, why didn't he just finish him off? Like
I said the same thing.
There was because they have another hour to kill.
Right.
So
But
which they didn't need.
Right.
They could have ended the movie right there.
They could have ended the movie 2 minutes in.
And if they wanted to extend, they could have been like, all right, he dies, and now the uncle wants payback because both of his nephews died.
I feel like they wanted some stakes because we all knew Tyler wasn't going to die.
Yeah, because he's impossible. Because in Extraction 1, at the end, what happens to him? He at the end of the movie, he gets shot really bad, and he stumbles back, falls off a bridge, unconscious.
One of them is his neck too.
Into a river and drowns.
Yeah.
And then the start of Extraction 2, he's in a hospital. Like, get the hell out of here. Like,
he-
there's no way
It's
he
somehow
survived
floated
that.
down. Yeah, he would have been dragged.
There would have been no Extraction 2.
A long
He
enough
died.
time for him to drown just because you can't hold your breath that long, or all of the bullet holes in his body would have just had all the water just going into them, specifically the one in his neck,
Right.
and he would have drowned that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, he shouldn't have. The movie should have been 1 minute just showing him drown, basically. And that would have been
That's it. Fringe moment. Let's talk about my biggest one, which is he's getting shot at by a helicopter while he's on a moving train, getting direct gunfire, and he's hiding behind a ladder.
Yeah.
And there have been memes about this scene, but when I actually saw it, I said, wow, this is messed up. There is no way that he can survive that. Like, there's no way that all the bullets, like, coming directly towards him are just hitting the pieces of the ladder and they all miss him.
The invincible ladder, yes. There's no way. And then he, sure enough, brings his gun out and kills the helicopter in one clip.
Yeah, that pissed me off, okay? That really grinds my gears.
It's when they're in Vienna. Like the helicopter comes, they're in the tower, the nice luxury apartment, and it just starts raining bullets. And they're hiding behind a kitchen counter. Like everything's getting destroyed, the bullets don't go through the counter, which is typical action movie.
Yeah.
You know, standing behind a table, the table's impenetrable.
Somehow it shields you.
But then like they get up from it and he's like looking at the computer, the security cameras on the same table that's getting shot at, and it's totally fine. It's working. You can see the bad guys. And he's like, they're coming up from the floor. I'm like, how does this computer?
They must have shot
Great
at
job.
least 6 or 7 rocket launchers in that one scene alone, shooting at cars, helicopters. I think only one missed, which I was actually like happy about that. I was like, dude, all these guys just have like deadlocked aim with these rocket launchers. Like they're not homing missiles. And then I saw one miss, and I was like, all right, that's the one miss. That scene had a plot hole with not only Tyler not finishing off Zarab, but when they leave him, Zarab is left alone on the rooftop of this building. 70 stories? That thing looked massively high. Even give it a low count, 30, right? Let's just say it was 30 stories. What should be the entire Vienna police force waiting for him downstairs. Like, police were getting shot at with guns, rocket launchers, grenades. They're calling for backup immediately when they pull up.
Oh, sure.
There should be a Vienna tank
shoot some guys
down
there over there,
being like, this might be a terrorist attack because they're shooting rockets and assault rifles.
It is a terrorist attack.
Right,
It's
so
exactly what it is.
At a random apartment building.
Right.
Right.
The next scene is Zarab chilling at his
Oh
warehouse.
yeah, they drive off out of the garage straight through, hiding.
He should have absolutely been captured, shot, arrested, something in that scene alone.
It was in the beginning when he unretires. It brought back like Rocky IV flashbacks.
Oh, with
of like
the
him
montage.
Of the montage, him in his cabin. He's in the woods. He's in the mountains. It's snowing, and you just see him like running up down, the snow, chopping down wood, pushing the rock sled. I'm like, this is Rocky IV.
Yeah.
And it's the villain is an Eastern European guy. I'm like, I'm just watching a modern day Rocky IV movie just without boxing.
Yeah. They're on the plane when Zarab's son, his nephew, steals the phone. And for me, Yaz, if he's a mercenary, he's a professional, right? Like that phone should at least have some type of pass lock on it. Somehow doesn't. Number two, you're a professional, you're a mercenary. You don't notice that your high-tech satellite cell phone has been stolen. Because not only does he not notice it on the plane, but when they're in the hotel, that means they landed the plane, drove to the hotel, we're chilling. He never is reaching for that satellite phone. Like he was just like, yeah, I left it on the plane, I guess. Like absolutely not. That's a high-tech piece of equipment. That thing would be expensive.
You don't leave that.
So for me, I was like, that's fucking bullshit. Like one, it should be locked, and two, he should be more concerned about where that thing is.
Calling bullshit.
Definitely calling bullshit. Number two, on the plane, they're like, we're about to land in Vienna, and that's when he steals the phone. So he finds a way to get in contact with all of the Nagazi back home, right? And they're like, oh, we have to go to Vienna. I looked it up. It takes about 4 hours and 15 minutes for a flight to go from Georgia to Vienna. These guys are not using fast airplanes. They're using helicopters that they had to probably drive to wherever their helicopter warehouse is in Georgia. Get ready to go. They bring a ton of artillery. They're bringing rockets, rocket launchers, machine guns, all this ammo, right? Like, it's not like the helicopters were not prepared for this type of assault, right? They do all of that and somehow make it to the hotel. The nephew's like, yeah, by the way, I texted them. They're right outside. You can see them. The helicopter's right over there, right? Like, no way that they were able to just get there that fast.
Memorable fight scenes at the cold shoot when he's going head to head with this guy and they're like putting his face in the fire and all that, and then all of a sudden he splits his entire hand, and I had a flashback from John Wick 4 with that splitting of the hand, and I was like, oh my god, it was so gross. The best fight scene of the whole movie is the riot at the prison. I mean, wow, like back to back, just like his fist is on fire.
His fist is literally on fire.
People. That's the main character, Tyler Rake. He's just like beating people up with the fist on fire. And what I really loved about that scene, that coming from an acting background, I appreciated, the background actors really gave it their all. Like, they were so into this film. The fighting looks so legitimate because these guys were hardcore. They're from Georgia, the country, and they're just like really giving it their all. They did an amazing job, and it was just so crazy. It was so wild. You had to be like, wow, that is a great fight.
They weren't letting go.
And he basically massacring an entire prison of people.
I think for me, my favorite fight scene was in the beginning. The Georgian governor is coming to talk with Zarab about like, oh, I'm sorry, your brother has to stay in jail for 10 more years because it's those damn Americans. And like, you knew he was gonna die. Like it was obvious.
They got the pit ready.
But then you didn't know, you didn't know how he was gonna die. But he just takes that pitchfork and just goes right through his throat.
Yeah.
And the way it was filmed, because like I think the pitchfork came right at you from like the angle. So then it was like one of those moments, and he just gets fallen right in the pit. You hear in the background the governor's bodyguards are getting shot at, and they're just gonna like bury him.
Favorite scene or most memorable kill was definitely in the gym. As soon as I saw that the fight broke out in the gym, I was like, someone's got to get their head smashed with a weight. Like I don't know how it's gonna go down.
I like when the leg press came down.
That was it. That was my favorite. I was like, all right, thank you. It would have been that would have been my number one like most hated thing if someone didn't die in a spectacular fashion.
And you know what's funny? While watching that, I was like, Chris Hemsworth, this is probably his favorite part because he's in the gym every day to look like that, and for him to like go through a gym and do these fight scenes, he's getting out a lot of anger.
It was so nonchalantly too, because he's like fighting, and he's like, kicks it, and goes like, boom.
I'll just smash this guy.
He knew how to use that machine exactly. He's used it 100,000 times, and he just kicked it right there, and boom.
Yeah.
That was great. I love that too. Good one.
Yeah.
We interviewed one of the actors. He's the guy with the gun that just gets exploded right away, and it's an amazing scene.
Today we have the pleasure of interviewing Georgian actor Irakli Kvirikadze from the city of Tbilisi in Georgia, the country, who you may recognize from the trailer of Extraction 2. Irakli has been on the fast track to fame since he was awarded the highly coveted European Shooting Star Award at the Berlin Film Festival for his role as Nika in Hostages. Welcome, Irakli.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Now, not only were you in Extraction 2, the focus of the trailer was a scene where you get blown up as the elevator is booby-trapped with a grenade. What was that like?
Well, to be honest, I didn't even hope that I would end up in the trailer. And not that I only ended up in the trailer, I ended up in 5 different trailers for Extraction, because I think they made like 5 different ones. And it was crazy. It was surprising. I'm honored. I'm very happy. And unfortunately, people don't recognize me because I look completely different in the trailer and in the movie with the beard, and I'm kind of sort of like bigger. And it was actually hard for me to see myself in that sort of like a shape too, because I was like, whoa, that's me. That's cool. I can do that. Okay, but amazing. What can I say? I'm honored.
Awesome. So also I noticed, Extraction 2 is action-packed throughout the entire movie. And us speaking about it, we're like, it's appearing physically impossible for any human to realistically endure. So when you shot those action scenes, were they exhausting?
They were exhausting, and we've been like training for like those scenes for like almost, me personally, I was training for it for like 3 months.
Wow.
And like the characters, like the main villain, Zurab or Chris, I think even longer, maybe 5 months or 6 even. But it was hard, especially like the one when we get off the helicopter. I think we did like 60 to like 70 takes of that, because like from different angles, and like sometimes like the speed was not like good, sometimes sometimes actor was not good, so we did like 65 takes of that. And like the next day my legs were like shaking. I could barely move. I was like in my bed all day, and that training was definitely necessary. And it was exhausting, especially for like the main characters who've been like, especially for Chris, because Chris is like doing like all pretty much by himself. So
I've heard that the Georgian actors, including yourself, knew each other personally or were even relatives. Is that true? And if so, who else did you know on the set?
It is true. Since the Georgian film industry is very small, because Georgia is a very small country itself. And we all have a history. Tina Teen, for instance, who plays Kerivan, the mother of the kids, we used to play in Hostages together back in 2017. We used to play a married couple, so I know her since 2016, since we started like preparing for the role. Tornike, who plays Zurab, the main villain, is actually my family, because he's married to my mom. I don't want to use the term stepdad because the age difference is not enough. It's not big enough to like call him a stepdad, but he is technically my stepdad.
Wow. So wait. So your stepdad, or he is the main villain.
Zurab. That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's incredible.
I know.
And what was that like for him? Do you have did he talk about that at all? Was it exhausting, even more so for him? Because
he was a nightmare, because he was like preparing for that role and like training for that role 24/7 every day. And I witnessed it because, I was there too. And but he was great shape, never complained about that. Like he's a hustler. I mean, he's a great guy. So yeah, he took it well.
Yeah, I mean, he plays such this evil guy on the show, and he's like this, basically a machine.
Yeah, and he's nothing like that in the real life. So it was a very good acting.
So he's actually a nice guy. We could set the record straight.
Nice guy.
Nice.
One of the nicest guys I've ever met. So yeah.
That's very cool. What was the audition process like for your role?
Well, first of all the Georgian actors auditioned for Zurab's part. We all had Zurab lines. And I remember I was in New York at the time, and I thought to myself, this audition better be serious. So it won't be like a self-tape, like during like in my bedroom or something like that. So I rented a room. I had the luxury, because in New York there are like the facilities where you can actually go and pay professional people who could just read the lines with you with the professional camera and everything. And I did that. I rented a room. I went there. I taped all the Zurab lines, whatever I had. And but at the time, I didn't know that Tornike was also auditioning for the part, because the Serafin casting got to me through my German agent, and Tornike, they found Tornike through the Georgian casting director. So we didn't know about each other. We didn't know that we were both auditioning for the same part. And once I did it, I remember telling my wife that I kind of have the feeling that it's gonna be something, that I have this feeling that, they're gonna give me a call back or something like that. And then a few days later, I talked to Tornike over the phone. He said, I got a great news. They're shooting a sequel to Extraction 2, and I got the part of Zurab. And as much as I was happy for him, I realized that was over for me. Yeah. And so I moved on. I came back to Georgia for the summer vacation to see my family, and then all of a sudden I was clubbing somewhere in the club in Tbilisi, and I got this email from my agent that he got an email from Serafin Casting saying that they actually want me to be Zurab's right hand.
Wow.
And boom, yeah.
That is awesome.
And it was great, because we all knew each other. We were all friends. We were all living in the same building, pretty much like that. We had this the whole building occupied by the Georgian actors. And we stayed there for three and a half. I stayed there for 3.5 months. Tornike for longer, and the rest of them longer, but we had so much fun. It was so much fun, and the process and working that movie was so much fun. I mean, we were blessed for sure. It was a great time.
And do you guys still talk about it today? Because I mean, it's a huge thing to happen.
We do, and now we're talking we need the next project like that too.
Yeah.
Somewhere off Tbilisi, somewhere in Europe or whatever. Just us, this crew. Yeah, we see each other pretty much. Very often. I'm here now for the summer because I'm doing this TV show. So yeah, we see each other pretty often, all of us. But yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. We'll be putting your links and stuff at the description of this video, so people can check you out, your IMDb, your Instagram, and see what you got going on. Because just me and you're a great guy, and I think you're going to be very successful, and people should definitely look out for your next work. So thank you so much, Irakli, for joining Real Reactions today, and we look forward to seeing you again on the silver screen.
Thank you very much, man.
The most memorable quote for sure is, "You fight for your brother until your last drop of blood." He took that to heart. He watched his brother get beat up by bullies, and his dad whooped his ass for letting that happen. He was like, "I'm never gonna let this happen again." And it was kind of like Ricky Bobby in Talladega Nights. He lets that just set the course of his life. That's how it goes.
He loses his whole crime syndicate just for that motto.
Right. He
Unrealistic.
went down with the motto, basically.
Right.
Sandro is trying to tell Chris Hemsworth, do you think you're a hero? Do you think you're so cool? All you do is killing people. Chris Hemsworth Hemsworth just says, listen, people pay me to do what they can't do. Like,
Yeah.
he understands who he is, his type of role, kind of like a Rambo type of thing, where he's
a
Rambo's like, I'm a mercenary, I do this for a living.
Gun for hire.
Chris Hemsworth owns it, which I'm like, all right, you know, he gets it.
Yeah.
You think what you do is good? You think you saved me? That you're some hero?
Doesn't really matter what I think. People pay me to do things I can't.
Like killing my father.
And my favorite line is right at the end when they're out of breath, they're on the floor, they're bullet ridden, all that, and they're laying next to each other. They're just so exhausted, and the bad guy turns to, a Tyler Rake and says, I will not stop. And then Tyler just shoots him right in the fucking head.
Yeah.
And then rests. He's like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
That was a nice way to end that fight scene in the church. Like one final bullet to shut this down.
3.9 right away.
3.9.
Wow.
Giving it 3.9. You know what? It's a great action movie. It's better than the first one. So very rarely is the sequel better than the original. In this case, I thought the sequel was better. Action-packed all the way through. In the last decade, we haven't seen an action movie like this besides John Wick, which blows us out of the water, but it was still very good for what it was. I felt invested in this story. I think Chris Hemsworth did an amazing job as a leading actor carrying the movie through, and I think it's a great movie to watch. I highly recommend it. I don't think it's going to be a classic that you watch every year. It's no Rambo, but it definitely could be watched if you're on an airplane or if it comes on TV. You'll watch Extraction 2 because it was good, and the action never stops, and I was really happy with it. And again, I was so impressed with the background actors, and you don't get that a lot, where they are truly invested in the story and really giving it their all and making it real.
Wow, for me, I gave it a mediocre 2.5.
Ooh!
It was, a typical action movie, very simple story, very simple plot, no plot twist, no dialogue, no character growth. It was just 3 action sequences. It kind of felt like I was trying to be like the next Die Hard, the next Rambo, John Wick. To me, it felt more like a video game that they kind of just like turned into a movie with those cut scenes, the cutaways. There was like no writing, no dialogue. Even the background of the villains was so stereotypical, like, oh, I got a birth defect, I'm the bad guy. This movie could have been over in 2 minutes. Just go with the saying, happy wife, happy life. There's no Tyler Rake, there's no movie. Georgia Crime Syndicate is still going strong. 2.5.
I'm more in line with you. I have a 2.7 for this movie. Again,
Way off.
Is it watchable? Yes. Was I happy that I watched it? Sure. It's a good action movie, but yeah, I'm not going to go out of my way to rewatch this movie. We're comparing it to like other action films that we rank really, really high. Like, it's not coming close to John Wick. I actually think I would put John Wick's character above Tyler Rake as a guy who's going to go to war for you and beat people up for you. I think, John Wick's the #1 guy right now. He's the hottest guy in the market. Tyler Rake lets his friends die. He gets shot a lot and is on the brink of death all the time. Like, I just feel like he's not going to be, he walks out on his family and it takes him like a lifetime to apologize for that. He just doesn't seem like I'd be my top choice for helping me in a crunch,
It's definitely a skippable movie if it shows up on TV, which even if it does, half those fight scenes will get edited to the point where you're barely watching it.
You should watch this movie once when the setting is right and you have time for it. But if you have nothing else to do, watch this movie. Or watch, leave it on in the background during your work day so you catch a couple of cool fight scenes or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Put
the
it on
action scenes are good. Just watch people get beat up or shot or exploded like that.
Changing my score.
No, too late. You're locked in.
3.2.
No, too late. Too late.
3.9.
I know they comment in the movie about TikTok, actually, so the people on TikTok, the people on YouTube, the people on Instagram, let us know what you guys thought about it. Your phones are definitely listening, so if you're talking about this movie with your friends, maybe you'll see some funny memes from this movie of him hiding behind a ladder.
And then just remember, happy spouse, happy house,
Yeah.
and then there's no movie.
Exactly. If there was no domestic violence and the kids were living, in a protected house away from the prison, Tyler's somewhere enjoying retirement in a cabin, chopping wood and hanging with his dog. All right, thanks again for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, comment, let us know where we hit the marks, if our rankings are too low or too high. We'll see you on the next one.